don't mind me, I'm just admiring my copies of Azul. But I bet you're probably wondering something even more important than what does Kim do when she's not filming? How do I rank my Azuls? Is it Azul, the original? Do I like this one the best? What about Azul, stained glass of Sintra? Is it this one? Or the most recent Azul, Summer Pavilion? How do I rank these, and which one takes the cake? Stay tuned and you'll find out. When Azul was introduced to the gaming world in 2017, players experienced a wonderful tile selection and placement in this abstract game, which if you've watched any of my videos, you know that abstract games, meh, but I'm starting to change my mind about that. I'm not sure I don't like abstract games. I just think that the more I play them, the better I'm getting at them, and it helps with my confidence. It also helps with my strategy and my intellectual growth as a gamer and a person. But this is an abstract game and you're creating these wonderful mosaics with these tiles. Now, in the original game, you had square tiles and the configurations and the setup was very static. That was the game, and I thought, wow, this is something. This is really unique. And then the next year, 2018, the second Azul came out, and it was so interesting. It changed a lot about the original game, but kept the same drafting and the same selection of tiles, but gave way, way, way more strategy to it. And I thought, that's, again, wow, that's something new. And then in 2019, we have Summer Pavilion. And you think that tiles can only be square? Well, guess what? They're diamonds in this one. That's how Azul runs. They change it up. But you still have, again, that same drafting and selection. There's more versatility and strategy in Summer Pavilion than the original, much like the second version. The stained glass of Sintra, it added even more to it. It really developed and made complex some of those basic moves that the original Azul introduced to gamers. So, I'm going to start off with my third place. This is the game that for me is not the one I want to play when I hear let's play Azul. I will play it, I have played it a lot, and maybe I just need to play it more. But the third place Azul for me is Summer Pavilion. This is the third and most recent Azul, and I think it might be too much for my brain. I think it took me 2 tries just to kind of get it. And boy, did I struggle with this. And I don't want to say that just because you struggle with a game or you're not good at it doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. That's not what I'm saying at all. But when I think about the 3 and which one I want to play and which one I feel like I'm going to relax and enjoy myself in, it's not Summer Pavilion. Maybe it asks me to think too hard, or maybe every time I've played there has been a swing that kind of puts me in a bad spot or a pigeonhole, or every time I try to make a decision because I think it might be a good strategy, it kind of ends up, blowing up in my face. And so, there's a little bit of luck. I'm going to put it back on me as strategy and thinker because the other 2 games require strategy and critical thinking, but there also is luck involved in those as well. So I can't say that there's just one thing about Summer Pavilion that doesn't work, because they all function in a very, very similar way. So for me, Summer Pavilion, I'm not a fan of the pressing to finish the hexes and to finish all of those symbols that you're trying to surround, and the center flower that you're trying to surround. Yes, it looks beautiful, and yeah, this Summer Pavilion is gorgeous, and I love the shapes. I like the idea of having a wild during each round. I like having those tiles in the center that you're allowed to grab as the bonus. But every time you get a bonus and there's nothing in the center that you want, you feel like it's a wasted bonus. And so for me, that kind of stunted my enjoyment or my pleasure of the game. And every time I went for a flower and I got 5 out of 6 and I didn't get that last one, you don't get giant amount of points. It's either all or nothing. And so for me, that was frustrating, and I think that might be one of the reasons I don't enjoy this one as much, because of those wild swings and the all or nothings. On a note related to game design, I have never played a game of Summer Pavilion without everyone mixing up each other's marker on the score track. And this is such a tiny space to move all of your pieces that when you're on the same space, I mean, you're doing things like this, and it's just so small. I mean, to have such a colorful game with beige, gray, white, and black as your markers, it's so confusing. So again, I know it's player error, but I have to admit that the game design doesn't encourage players to remember that they're beige versus white. It's a perfectly fine game, and I will absolutely play it. It just comes in third in my Azuls. I will say that one of the really cool things about Summer Pavilion is that there's a really cool thing, a chute, that you dump all of your tiles into, and it makes a really lovely sound. And I think they came up with that after the first game, because everyone wanted to make those sounds when they dump the tiles into something, and we all had to provide our own, you know, copper cups and mugs and glass jars and stuff. And so we would dump it in, and then we'd make that sound, and then you shake them back out and you put them in the bag. So I think that that's one of the developments over the years that Azul came up with, because players really wanted to have that a satisfying sound of tiles, you know, clashing into each other. And as I will mention when I talk about stained glass of Sintra, the breaking of the glass, which is part of the theme and part of the idea of like throwing down the glass that you don't use, and it's wasted, and so you throw it into the chute. So both of these games, the stained glass of Sintra and Summer Pavilion, give you that satisfaction of dumping tiles into bins, and that's really fun. All right, moving on to my number 2 Azul. This is my number 2 because, boy, it's just a squeaker. My first place and my second place are pretty close. I cannot tie them though, because there is one, when I think about it, I just want to play over the other one. So my second place Azul is Azul the Original. This is a great game. I really do like it. I like the simplicity of it. I like how easy it is to teach other players to play. And again, you have the flexibility of flipping the board over if you want to have a more complex thinker, where players have to make sure that they don't mess up and get the same color and pattern in the same column and row. That the front side actually just plans for you so that you don't mess up or you don't get yourself in a pickle. But this is just a great game. Now, I think, again, some of the fixes in the second and third iterations, the second and third games, fixes the first player marker from this first original game. But I think that the penalty for getting the first player token in the first game is not necessarily as steep as in some of the other versions. And so it's just really easy to go after that first player token because you want first player. Everybody wants first player, because if there are great selections in the little circle areas where you take your tiles, you want first. You don't want fourth. You don't want third. You want to go first. And so I think that that is one of the other reasons that kind of keeps me from putting the original in my first place spot. The other thing with Azul the Original is some players just really get a great engine and they are working with fire and they just go, and there's very few opportunities to catch up. If you see someone is kind of ahead every time there's a scoring, you just watch them just shoot ahead and it just is a runaway. And so I think that that point disparity also, well, I guess the point disparity is there in Summer Pavilion. Every time I played Summer Pavilion, my score marker is like all the way down and everyone else's is all the way up. But I'm the only one, so I'm like kind of like an outlier. So I think that in Summer Pavilion and in Stained Glass of Sintra, there's that closer range of victory points. And so in the original, it doesn't necessarily work that way. So there might be a little bit of a runaway in the original. I also mentioned that there's no place to place the tiles when you're done using them, and so that also just a little bit of a, a little bit of a knock. You have to, bring your own mug or tray or, cup or something to put them in. But overall, I think Azul the original is a lovely game. Like I said, it's really simple to teach and easy to play, and there's that versatility with the front and the back of the board. Alright, so that brings me to my top placing Azul. It's not a surprise now. It is Stained Glass of Sintra. This is my favorite Azul. Now, I like this game for a variety of reasons. The first one is it's a little bit more complex than the original. And like I said, the original is straightforward and easy, but I like how this requires much more planning and much stronger strategy, particularly when it comes to the movement of your person across the top, allowing you the options of placing your tiles in that column or the ones to the right. I love the selection of your tile that goes down once you finish an entire column, and that's going to be your score marker at the bottom at the end of the game when you score. And I really like how it's just so intricate and detailed without being overly complex and swingy like I feel Summer Pavilion is. Now, the tower isn't necessarily as satisfying as the tower that you dump all of your tiles in Summer Pavilion, but I do like the idea of the broken glass. In the Stained Glass of Sintra, the broken glass is a little bit more steep than the original in Azul when you didn't use the tile in that particular row. You put it down there in the bottom, and that was going to be your negative points at the end of the round. Well, in this, I mean, you just keep going down that mark, and if you get to minus 18 and you get more, you just go back up to 1, you lose 18 points right away. Now, you shouldn't be getting minus 18 points with stained glass in this game for broken glass, but there's the possibility of breaking that much glass. I like the combinations of how these movable columns, you set that up in the beginning, which means there's variety, there's flexibility, there's going to be change every time you play. You know, when you get those columns and what are actually on them, like what the colors are that are depicted. Another thing I appreciate about this game is that on the little discs that you place the tiles when you draw them in the beginning of the round, you can flip them over and they have segments where you can place them so that it's easier to tell which ones are different colors and different designs. And so it helps with differentiating if the colors are too close or you're having a hard time distinguishing them. And I like that aid. I think that's just really wonderful. I like that each time you finish a column, you're only scoring for the tile of that particular round, which gives you even more strategy to plan for, because you don't want to finish a column if it's not going to give you any victory points. Yeah, you can drop one down at the end and then you can go through that column one more time before you lose it entirely. But again, there's just so much wonderful, clever strategy here that gives people the flexibility of choosing a variety of things. And I guess for me, that really does it for me. Like, I enjoy this Azul, and I want to play this Azul. I want to play Stained Glass of Sintra. To me, it just hits exactly the right sweet spot of strategy and luck, player interaction, and just the basic overall structure of your turn and how you get penalized for breaking glass and how you score every round and every turn is going to be different. I just think it's so replayable. So for me, again, Stained Glass of Sintra is the one that I think rises to the top. I would love to hear what you think. Why don't you rank your Azuls for me in the comments below? I'd love to hear your feedback and tell me what you really like about each one of these three, and I'll see you next time.